Hey neighbors, we have got a lot of progress. I came out here and filmed the foundation on this house in Windsong Ranch by American Legend, and it was a foundation. We went on vacation and I came back and it's framed. We've got exterior cladding, we've got a bunch of trim work, we got a roof, and we got windows. Let's go in and take a look. All right, folks. Well, it's really windy, and I'm going to do my best to edit out the wind noise, but if it's kind of nasty, forgive me on that. We'll do the best we can. It'll calm down when I get inside the house. So I got to tell you something. That is the slickest temporary sidewalk I've ever seen poured. These guys lined it with 2x4s, and then they poured the cement. That's awesome. I've seen some pretty interesting ones, but I thought that was pretty cool. I wanted to point it out. All right, one of my favorite exterior cladding is the zip system. I absolutely love this stuff. Thermos sheath, you know, and all the ply-based stuff and all that, even OSB, I don't like as much as zip. Now, I'm not an expert, but I'm going to tell you, I think the zip system with the zip tape and flashing and all that stuff when used together, I think that is one of the best systems for exterior cladding I've encountered. All right, so let me walk you around and just tell you a couple of things. Before we go inside, there's a couple of things I wanted to point out. Every time you see even a pipe that's got flashing around it, this is flashing tape. It's like hot tar on the sticky, so be careful. Now remember, these bend, and as they are putting in the bricks, they'll put this between two bricks, and so it helps stabilize that brick facade. Because remember, this is the brick ledge, and so your bricks are stacked on that, but there's a gap between the exterior of the house and the bricks on the inside, and that air gap allows any moisture that penetrates to run down the inside and then out the bottom. And that's why you see vertical slits that are actually open without mortar every so often, just so you know how that works. And again, look, you've got the zip tape around the window. So everywhere you have two different or discretely different surfaces or systems meet, exterior cladding system, window system, you need flashing, zip tape, something so that air and other stuff can't penetrate where those two connect. So this is a really good thing. Every time you see it, you want to see something that keeps stuff out. Bugs, rain, moisture. Moisture is the big thing, but it also helps keep all that other stuff out. All right, so of course, hose bibs, right? Makes perfect sense. And then over here, I spotted this sucker. This is a direct vent fireplace. So in a fireplace that does not burn wood, this is what you have on the outside of your home. And that way we don't have to build a chimney all the way up. So I'm actually going to go in the back. So here's our covered porch. Just in case you ever wonder what it looks like, you can see the framing and the joists up in there. It's pretty interesting. And whenever you see wiring just laying up like that, it's perfectly fine. The only thing that goes up on that is shredded cellulose insulation. And that's like the weight of snow. It's super lightweight. It's not going to hurt anything. All right. So this is great to see. OSB board is really good exterior cladding as well. I like zip board better, but this is really good. And remember, on your exterior walls, there is batted insulation that will be placed in here. So you're going to have your exterior cladding, insulation, drywall. Okay. All right. Your HVAC vents or ductworks. So a vent, or is also called a supply, blows air into your house. And let's find a return. So, well, I don't see. These are two vents or two supplies, and there will be a return somewhere. They may not have installed it yet, but the thing you've always wanted to remember, there's a return. Returns are usually big, and that's not a supply. That'd be a massive supply for a hallway. That doesn't make sense. So that's a return. And then in this open area, you've got supplies. So sometimes you'll hear old guys like me call them vents, but the modern smart HVAC guys call them supplies. All right. Also, look at that Boise Cascade header. That's a 2x12, and they've got two of them. Those are expensive boards. Sorry, that's a bunny trail. All right, look up on the decking. So on the top of your house, what you'd call the roof, this is plywood with the back of it is basically a fancy industrial aluminum foil. It's called Tech Shield. It's a little bit nicer than aluminum foil, but that's basically what it is. That product alone will knock an attic temperature in Texas. So remember, most of our attics are uninsulated. The insulation is right here on top of these rafters and joists, not up there. So that product keeps the sun's solar radiation from entering the attic, and it'll make it 20, 25 degrees cooler. So instead of going up in an attic on a 106-degree day here and having the attic 130, 140 degrees, it'll be 110, 112. And I know that sounds hot, but it's a lot more comfortable to be up in that attic if you're trying to fix an air conditioner, do some repair work in the summers in Texas with just that little bit of insulation. In addition to that, remember, most of our air handlers, our heaters, and our air conditioning exchange units are in the attic. Compressors are outside, but the actual air handlers are in the attic, and the vents that blow, the cold air comes through this and then it blows out the supply or the vent. All of that up there, the lower you can keep that temperature, the less thermal exchange occurs, which means the more efficient and more energy efficient our air conditioning can run. And in Texas, even though we had snowpocalypse, we mainly are concerned about cooling houses. And for the most of the time, our winters, it's not too difficult to keep our homes warm, right? This is a great wall. Look at all this. All right. This house right now is in what we call the mechanical rough out phase. You'll hear it called pre-drywall. And I'm so excited about this wall right here because I can point out all the different stuff in the walls. Okay, hang on a second. All right, I had to spin this around because I want to make sure I tell you guys in YouTube land, don't ever do this. Even if you're an expert, don't ever do this. What am I talking about? Grabbing Romex. Romex is a 3-strand wire that runs electricity through your home. Now, this does not power your oven, and this does not power your air conditioning system. That's a bigger chunk of wire carrying more current, more voltage. This is what's your standard outlet. It runs pretty much most of your appliances, TVs, things like that. But I wanted to show you that is what that wire is. So when you see it running through your walls, you'll understand that's what's driving most everything. And you can see right here how there's a hole and they run it right through the 2x4s. They do that because if they ran it here, when they put the drywall on top of it, you'd have that cable there and it'd make a bump or a bulge and your walls wouldn't be flat. I'm not a fan of how they drill these holes like this because they drill them bigger than they need to be, but they've been doing it for 50 years and it works. That's not my preferred thing. I would like to have that wiring run differently as opposed to drilling a hole through the 2x4, but everybody does it and the houses don't fall down because of it, so it is what it is. Here's where your boxes are gonna go. You're gonna have outlets and switches that look kind of like this. Your switch boxes look like this. There we go. And then let's go over in here and I can show you your water lines. This is the last time I'll be able to walk through the walls in your house. And yeah, I just did that, but it's pretty fun. Let me spin you back around. Okay, this is PEX line. This is what runs water in your home. It has replaced copper pipe and copper tubing in the house. And this has been under development for a long time. This stuff actually expands and contracts without breaking. It minimizes water leaks in modern construction, whereas copper pipe, if it got water in it and froze, you'd have a water leak, it'd burst. This doesn't. This stuff can expand. We have a PEX level 1 and PEX level 2. I think PEX level 1 can expand 2 or 3 times its normal size without bursting. And don't get me lying, but I think PEX level 2 can expand 5 times. But I'll go look it up. And see, you can even see here where they've joined the PEX to the copper, right? Interesting, isn't it? They have to do that sometimes for certain fixtures and attachments. All right. Over here, we have more line. Now look how industrially that thing is built with shutoffs and blow-offs on that thing. It's insulated because it's on an exterior wall, and hot and cold will be out there in the garage, even though there'll be insulation in this wall. And it's really important. The insulation needs to wrap around this pipe. You don't want the pipe facing the cold air without some kind of insulation. So they've insulated it here, and then they're going to have insulation on either side of it. That's a big thumbs up. Not everyone is that diligent about it, though they should be. And that's why you have a home inspector. And having an inspection done when the insulation's up, but before they put up drywall, is vital. That's what we call a pre-drywall inspection. And then we have an inspection right before closing. And that is the best thing we can do. If you remember, on the back side of that wall was the direct vent. And here's the fireplace unit. It's a sealed unit. You can tell, right, because there's a piece of glass in place. And then you can see the exhaust, the heat goes right out through there, okay? It's funny. A lot of you guys that watch my videos know that the construction managers and the subcontractors, everybody, they communicate by writing, right, on the floors. And it's half Spanish and half English. And so you kind of have to learn like builder Spanish, but it's code and it's also different words from different languages. But it has a meaning, and once you understand it, you can convey a lot with just a few words and scribbles. All right, so when we walk around, what we're looking for is we're looking for clean cuts. We're looking to make sure that the nails are in place structurally. Everything is supported properly. So let me back up just a little. If you look at this, you are going to have headers, you're going to have footers, you're going to have top cripples and bottom cripples, king studs. There is a certain methodology for framing a doorway, for framing a window, for framing a garage door opening. And what we want to look at is to make sure all these boards that have names are cut to the right size and they're actually in there bearing weight. And you've actually got all the metal cups and pieces and hangers to make sure everything is done correctly. Now, the home inspector is going to look at some of that. The builder will look at some of it, and the city inspector will look at some of it. And then I walk around and eyeball it, putting my 2 cents in. So the goal is to make sure at a minimum that the home is as structurally sound as the builder could make it, given the time frame and the materials and the labor he has, or she has, right? So see these hangers? You should have these hangers anytime that wood abuts, like the header. So it's not technically sitting on top of the header where that wood's pushing down on the header. So they've got to hang it. So what they do is they nail it or screw it into the header, and then that board fits down in it like a cup. Hopefully that makes sense. This stuff's really fun. It's to me, it is amazing to come out and see how all this stuff is done. Look how they did that rounded section right there. Isn't that cool? I think it's just amazing on the finish out and the detail work they're doing to get curvature, and then they come in and they drywall it, and you wind up with these really cool architectural details, and it's what gives the home character. But imagine the amount of work and time it takes to do all that. It's easy just to do, a flat, but that right there takes a lot of craftsmanship and time. And then the drywall guys have to bend it and curve it and texture it and make it all work. And again, there's a supply. And so look, this is just the entryway, but we've still got a fresh air supply for heating and air conditioning so that we're not going to have cold spots in the house, which is really important. Hey, there's my face. All right. I've got to walk around and look through all this in greater detail. I don't do that on camera. It'll bore you to death. But let me give you a summary. Right now, we are what we're called sealed from the elements. Okay? Concrete's poured. It's framed. The roof is on. The pretty windows are in. The construction doors will go in soon. And the exterior cladding's on. Sealed from the elements. As soon as those doors are on so the rain can't blow in, they can start putting in the insulation, because we don't want the insulation to get wet. You don't want to ever have a risk of mold. And remember, mold needs the darkness, moisture, and humidity, which is heat and moisture, right? So what we want to do is make sure no moisture can get in, then we can insulate. So once all of the wiring, the plumbing, the HVAC, the ducts, all of that stuff's done, then they will get the city to come out and inspect it. And then they could do the exterior insulation, meaning the insulation that goes on the inside of your house and touches up to that exterior cladding I showed you. And at that point, we may have our pre-drywall walk or meeting with the builder, okay? Now, the inspector can come out before the insulation or after the insulation. It's okay. So long as he or she can see the wiring, the plumbing, touch it, make sure no wires are penetrated, check all of his codes, we're good to go. After that inspection by the city, we're going to get a green or a red tag. And that's a fancy way of saying we either failed it or passed it. And if we failed it, it's typically no big deal. It's a wire was done wrong, or a PEX line wasn't, maybe he was concerned about the PEX line. So all of that gets corrected, whatever it is. And then they re-inspect it, and hopefully we get a green tag. And once we get a green tag, if the insulation wasn't put in, it will be put in, and then the drywall goes up. And let me tell you something. You think it was fun when the framing went up on your concrete? Wait till the drywall goes in. The drywall is what optically makes you understand the size of the rooms. It kind of becomes real. And at that point, it's really going to feel like your house, and you can start planning and looking and figuring things out. Yeah. So that's our next phase. We got to get drywall in. Once the drywall goes up. Oh, and the other thing is, don't come in here if they're putting up drywall. Those 4x8 sheets are heavy, and if they fall, they can really hurt you. So anytime there's material in the air, just don't come in. Walk around the outside, right? Peek your head in and look, but don't get under them. Give them room to work, and it's for your safety. After they get the drywall screwed in, then they will tape it, float it with mud, texture it, knock down the texture to give us that look we like in Texas, and then they'll paint it. And at that point, we're off to the races. Last word of caution for you, don't be disappointed, but the first third of the construction cycle on a new home goes quick. See, once they pour the foundation, you're like, oh, we'll be done in 2 months. Well, when we hit this next phase, it slows way down. And then the last third, typically it goes pretty quickly. That's, putting in light fixtures and light bulbs and screwing in water faucets and, appliances and all that little stuff. But there's so much in at that point, it really feels like it's going fast because you can see we're getting near the end. All right. As always, if you guys have any questions, reach out to me. Thank you for giving me the grace to go on a vacation. Deb and I had a blast. We went to a pretty place in Idaho called Coeur d'Alene. Let me know if you guys have ever been up there. Send me a comment below and let me know. We loved it. We thought it was gorgeous. We stayed on the river. All right, guys, the house is coming along good. I've got to walk around and just double check a bunch of stuff. I'm excited by the progress. They're getting some stuff done, and that's great. But as always, hope God keeps and blesses you and causes his face to shine upon you. Until I see you again, take care.